Take it to the Eastern Cape now. That's where the plight of nurses is in sharp focus. Michelle is standing by.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ayanda. More than 600 newly qualified intern nurses, in fact, are sitting at home in the Eastern Cape. Now, they finished their community service training last month, only to be told on their last day that they would not be employed by the health department as they had expected. Now, one of the nurses, Newzroom Afrika, expressed her pain and her disappointment over being qualified and unemployed in the middle of a pandemic. Here's a snippet of a 35-minute video that she posted.
625 professional nurses in the Eastern Cape alone are out of a job. Right now, we are facing a pandemic. People are sick, and we were playing a vital role. We were playing a vital role in the institutions and in the communities that we are coming from. And misuse of funds in South Africa. Let us secure the Department of Health, because it really needs people to be hands-on upper in the Department of Health. 625 nurses in the Eastern Cape out of a job at a time when we are facing a health crisis. It does not make sense to me. It does not make sense to me at all. Imagine in the state that I am in to my mother. Imagine I am unemployed when everyone else got retrenched emsebenzini and at least nakunomvu yaphangela. Ngoku ndizawufika ekhaya ndithi hayi nam ke andiphangeli. Urhulumente wethu ufuna sithini bethuna? Ufuna sithini? Bekwaziwa kakuhle. I-COVID ifike early in 2020, so bokwaziwa kakuhle ukuthi i-contract yethu izawuphela 31st January. Why was there no plan to finance our salaries from February and March up until kufike enye financial year, then kwenziwe elinye icebo?
Well, Newzroom Afrika joins us now via video link. She is joined by the Eastern Cape's Health Department spokesperson, Siyanda Manana. They both join us via our video link. To both of you, a very good morning. Welcome to the AM report on Newzroom Channel 405. Siyanda, I want to begin with you because, you know, as spokesperson in the Health Department, we have time and time again heard how the Health Department, not only provincially but nationally, how it values the contribution of nurses who have for months now been at the front line of fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. How do we balance that next to the picture that Nomvo has just painted of how these 625 nurses have been treated?
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Look, let me sketch the picture for you. We have nurses that, we appreciate their contribution, especially in the fight against COVID. They were very gallant. We lost some of them during this period, and may their souls rest in peace. What has really happened is that on an annual basis, we get nurses, that do community service. When they then complete their community service, at the expiration of their contract, what is supposed to happen is that they're supposed then, when we have vacant and funded posts, we advertise those posts, and then they go for a question of, recruitment, the recruitment processes, and then the appointment processes, and then we absorb them into the system. Now, in this instance, they are paid from what is known as grant funding, not from the equitable share. So due to the pressures that we had and the fact that we are also going to be having an intake of other nurses that are going to be doing community service. Now, we then had the pressure of COVID. We then had the pressure of medical legal. And, those two were really the main things that put the pressure on us. And the fact that we are still going to then have another cohort nurses that we are going to take in. So we then, said to them that, look, the expiration happens on the 30th of January. Then after that, then we'll then have to go and see really what happens. What then has happened is that we then had a meeting with the nurses, the representative from the nurses, and then we had then said to them that we're going to come back to them. And then after coming back to them, we'll then tell them really the way forward, because we have really appealed to Treasury so that, we can really absorb them into the system. What has happened in the past is that we've just automatically absorbed them. So it's really something now that has happened to us that we've done in the past. It was not supposed to have happened in that particular fashion. It is supposed to have happened in the manner in which I had sketched before. So we are now really victims in terms of our, circumventing of the processes that are supposed to have been followed.
Siyanda, can I come in there, please, and bring in Nomvo Makata, and that is the nurse who posted that incredibly emotional video. It was just a snippet that we played for our viewers, but it's a 35-minute video. Nomvo, I want to talk to you more about the months leading up to this decision by the department not to give you and 620-odd other nurses a permanent post. During that time, you yourself contracted COVID-19.
Yes, I had gotten infected with COVID-19 and I went on isolation. And then when I came back, I actually volunteered myself to work in a COVID ward. I volunteered myself because most of our nurses, because of age and because of having chronic illnesses, they could not be exposed to COVID. So they couldn't work in a COVID ward. So I thought, fine, I'm young, I do not have any chronic illnesses, so fine, I can go work in that ward. And most of us, even in other institutions, we're working in these COVID designated wards because of the reasons that I've just highlighted. So even some of us were even working in COVID ICU. We are fresh from school, but people were working in ICUs because most of our old nurses have chronic illnesses. So that is the question that I was asking the DDG yesterday when we went to Bisho, that are you now going to go back and force those nurses with chronic illnesses to go and work in those COVID wards because you are saying we should go and stay at home? And the other degrading and very demeaning thing is that we were told verbally that you are without a job, we will call you maybe in April when we have funds. How are we supposed to go to banks and tell them that we have been verbally promised by the government that we are maybe going to be employed in April? We don't even trust that at this stage because the way that they are doing things is undignified. And the other shocking thing is that other people in the healthcare system, doctors, radiographers, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, they were employed now in January. But when it comes to employing a nurse, the person who's hands-on, who's there 24 hours, who's there for 12 hours in a shift or 8 hours in a shift, caring for a patient, there is no money. If there is no money, where did they get the money to employ doctors and radiographers and occupational therapists and physiotherapists? And these people are getting paid double and triple a salary of a nurse, but they got employed and they are only in a ward for less than even 30 minutes. But now they are the ones that are employed and we are the ones that are told you have to go and sit at home, there's no money.
Nomvo Makata, I'm going to ask you to please stand by along with our guest, the Eastern Cape Health Department spokesperson, Siyanda Monana. We've got to take a short breather. When we come back, we're going to talk more to the Department of Health in that province about whether it can in fact afford to be without these 625 nurses. We're in the middle of a discussion with Nomvo Makata, who is one of 625 intern nurses in the Eastern Cape who have been told that they might be employed come the end of April. We're getting you a response from the Eastern Cape Health Department spokesperson, Siyanda Monana. To both our guests, thanks so much for your patience this morning. Siyanda, I want you to come in here because there's a response that's needed to what Nomvo has just described to our viewers, that nurses are at the forefront of the care given to COVID-19 patients. Where did the department, or how was the department able to find the budget that was needed for other posts that were needed in various hospitals in the province, but not for those that are so integral to our response to the pandemic?
Michelle, I want to reassure her that we do appreciate the job that the nurses are doing. They are actually the ones, in terms even of the statistics, the ones that have contracted, COVID during this period, and they are really the ones that have been, the fatality statistics prefer them on a larger scale than any category. So we have then, during that process, there were openings that have happened as a result of that, of the fatalities that have happened. At this point in time, Dr. Matiwane went to them yesterday and then reassured them that come next week, we are going to go back to them and then tell them exactly what is the departmental stance regarding this.
Sianda,
so in a way...
Sianda, can I please interrupt you there for just a moment? Because I think you and I can both agree that appreciating someone in words while that person sits at home without a job and without any job assurance means very, very little. But I want to ask you about whether the Eastern Cape Health Department can afford to be without these 625 nurses when just some months ago, the department itself said it was struggling in its response to COVID-19 because of a shortage of healthcare professionals.
Yes. No, I agree and I accept that we cannot do without the nurses. Hence, I'm saying that at this point in time, we are really seized with this, as Dr. Matiwane had said yesterday, and reassured them that come next week, we are going to go back to them and then tell them exactly what is happening. The matter is not only seizing our department, but we have also gone to Treasury. The Office of the Premier has also been seized with this. So it's an urgent measure. We're treating it with the urgency that it deserves, Michelle.
So you're saying now what Nomva has described to us, the department last told those 625 nurses was that they would get some clarity at the end of April if those posts and if the budget becomes available. You're saying they might get that clarity next week?
Yes.
Nomva, what do you make of that response from the spokesperson in the Eastern Cape Health Department?
That is what they informed us, because we had a memorandum and we submitted the memorandum to them yesterday. And this memorandum, we wrote it as these unemployed nurses. It was not led by any union. We did it ourselves. So we handed them over the memorandum, and then they promised that they will call us Monday next week to inform us, because there are meetings going on to deal with the issue. And we really think it should be a matter of urgency, because it is the community who's going to suffer. Because who is now going to give care that we were giving to the patients that we were caring for? People in the community, and it's the poor of the poor who's going to suffer, because it's the poor people who access public health facilities. So if there are 625 nurses out of a job, and these nurses were actually the ones playing a vital role in the fight against COVID-19, then who is going to be there? Because even when we were working, we were short-staffed. So we know that there is a situation of short staffing. So now who is going to be taking care of our patients? Some clinics, they may have to see very few patients a day, because now you will find that there is only one nurse working, because some of us were actually working with only the sister in charge in a ward, and it was just community service nurses. And now the sister in charge is left alone to run a clinic, you know? So we are maybe even anticipating a situation where a clinic might be closed, because one nurse cannot be running a clinic, doing immunizations, looking after pregnant women, you know, attending to people with chronic illnesses, and also doing testing of people coming with COVID-19, and also doing follow-up of people testing positive for COVID-19. Services are going to crash. And we want to know, does the government not care to that extent? Because it's the communities that are going to suffer, not us alone.
Yeah, very, very well said. Sianda, I'm going to hold you to that. We look forward to getting you back on the show next week. What can you tell us in terms of how we can expect these discussions to go next week? More importantly, What can you tell Nomvo and these 620-odd nurses about how the next few days will go? When will you have an update for them?
Michelle, I don't want to preempt really the discussions that are going to happen, because they are not only dependent on us, they are also dependent on the other department, which is the Treasury Department. So we will then, because we're also meeting today, we had a meeting yesterday, we had a meeting day before yesterday, so which was called, urgently by the MEC to deal with this matter. So we are seized with the matter. We are treating it, with the attention that it deserves. And we can't therefore afford to have a situation where we do not have nurses in our institutions. So the gap of about 2 months for us, it's not good at all. Because we are not only facing the questions of COVID only, we're also faced with the question of other illnesses that have got to be treated by our nurses.
Yeah. We
We do appreciate the nurses. We do appreciate their efforts. We do appreciate their sacrifices. So they must just give us time. We are going to revert to them, as the DGT has said. By next week, we'll be able to give them, what is it that the discussions have panned out to, during this from today going forward.
Yeah, as Nomvo has just outlined so eloquently, the foundations of community healthcare in our country, more specifically in the Eastern Cape, depends on these nurses. Let's see that appreciation, Ziyanda, translated into action with your department. Ziyanda and Nomvo, thanks very much to both of you for joining us this morning on the AM Report. We look forward to speaking to you both next week, more particularly the Eastern Cape Health Department, for an update on how those negotiations are going. It's a story we're going to stay on right here on the AM Report.